Hello, everyone. This is Amy Waninger with Lead at Any Level. How are you today? I hope you are doing well. So this is a little bit off my normal time. I missed my live this week because I had to have a medical procedure, but I am back just very briefly today. I'm going to be a little bit off topic as well, but this is something that's been on my mind. I know it's on a lot of people's minds in my world, and I just wanted to open your eyes to some things this week that I've been thinking about and that have been hot topics of conversation in some of my circles. So I didn't put a title up because I wanted to get this out quick, but here's what I want to talk about. I want to talk about women's events, and are they for empowerment or are they for the exploitation of women? And the reason I ask this is because I'm going to tell you a quick story. I did a women's empowerment summit a couple years ago, right before COVID. It was a wonderful event. And I did it as a favor to a friend. I flew across the country. I think I was reimbursed for my airfare, and I think they covered like one night of hotel for me. I'm a professional speaker. I usually get paid quite a bit of money to speak at events or at company events, corporate events, or at conferences. But I waived my fee for my friend because she said this is a women's group. They are run from an alumni network out of a local college. Their policy is they don't pay speakers, but I would really love to see you. I would love for you to come. And I said, okay, fine, I will do this. I said, is there any chance of pushing back on this no fee thing? And she said, no, there really is not. And I said, okay, well, I wanted to be there for her. So I went to this event, right? And I would love to hear in the chat, if you're a fellow speaker and you're watching this, I would love to hear in the chat if this sounds familiar. And if you are ever on an event committee, if this sounds familiar and this bothers you. So I went to the event. It was a fantastic event. It was in a very nice place in a very nice part of town. They charged a lot of money for tickets for this event. They had sponsors. The sponsors paid a lot of money to be there to market to the attendees. This was not a come and bring a sales pitch kind of event. This was come and deliver really good content, actionable takeaways that people can use. Right. And so I was very clear, like, this is not a sales seminar. This is an actual content rich kind of conference. And, it was very well done, very, very well done, very professionally executed. And as I looked around, I started noticing things like, they had this really great audiovisual setup in every one of the breakouts for the keynotes. They had a beautiful stage. They had the big Jumbotron screens. I mean, it was no small investment to get those AV teams there. The catering was top notch. I'm sure that, was, a lot of their sponsorship dollars went into that. I'm sure a lot of the sponsorship and the attendee dollars went into the event venue itself. And what I noticed is every speaker that got on the stage, almost all women, I think it was 100% women on the stage because representation was really important to this group. All the women that got up on stage talked about what it was like for them in their various industries, whether it was medical, manufacturing, agriculture, finance, whatever their industry was. They all got up on stage and talked about their journey as women professionals. It was a very diverse mix, which was awesome, right? It wasn't the white women's conference. It was truly a cross section of the audience was, could see themselves on stage in a very real way. But every single one of them mentioned the pay gap at this conference. It's pretty well known that white women make about 87 cents on the dollar for the same work as white men. For Black women, Latino women, Indigenous women, that number is far lower than 87 cents. I think down as low as 56% or 56 cents on the dollar for Hispanic women at last count. So we're talking about real issues, right? And the whole point was to empower women to ask for more, to empower women to do better in their work, right? And to show up, right, confident and entitled to what they should be entitled to as women professionals. And again, this was across all sectors, all different sectors of the local economy. So what I realized, though, at the end, as I was packing my stuff up and I was walking over to say goodbye to a friend that I saw while I was there, and I was walking back out toward the door, I heard one of the organizers talking, just overheard a snippet of conversation. And she said to one of the other organizers, hold on, I'll be right back. I have to go write a check to the AV guys. And something clicked in my mind in that moment. And I realized that this whole women's empowerment event, where they were talking to women were talking to women about how to show up empowered, how to, claim their dollar for every man's dollar. The pay gap at that event was 100%. Women made 0 cents on the dollar for what the women vendors were making 0 cents on the dollar compared to the male vendors, the AV guys, as she called them. And it occurred to me in that moment that this was not entirely about women's empowerment. There was also some exploitation going on as well. And I get requests periodically from women's groups, and I love this, right? I love talking to women. Number one, about how we can be allies for each other, because, as a white woman, I have access and privilege that other women that I'm friends with, other women in my circles, do not have access to and privilege about. So it's really important to me that women always advocate for everyone, but especially for other women, and especially for women with less access and less privilege than we ourselves have. Um, but what I find is a lot of these women's empowerment events, they pay the caterer, they pay the venue, they pay the hotel, they pay for the webmaster, they pay for the event planner. They, usually sometimes they'll have a man who's an MC, they'll sometimes pay him. They definitely pay the AV team, they pay the stage crews, they pay all of these groups, right, that are involved in the making and the production of these events. And they absolutely should. Those people are working really hard to pull these events off. But they're charging, right? And they should charge, by the way. If you're delivering solid content and people want to see it, then you should be charging for it. So absolutely charge attendees so that you can cover the cost of their meals and their venue and all of those things. And if you have sponsors, that's great. People that are willing to pay a premium to market their goods and services to the audience that you've collected for them. That all makes sense. But what I'm asking is, especially for women's events, especially for events that tout women's empowerment, pay your women speakers. It makes no sense to bring me in to talk to women about how to feel empowered if I haven't gotten paid a dime to be there, and if I'm not allowed to sell while I'm there, which is a common occurrence at these things, right? You don't want every speech to be a sales pitch, and I get that, right? And every speech shouldn't be a sales pitch. But a lot of times when professional speakers speak for free, it's because we are going to sell something on the back end of that to pay for our time, because our time is valuable too, as is our expertise. So here's what I'm saying. Long story short, if you are organizing a women's event and the event is around women's empowerment and you are collecting some money from some people and paying some money to other people, but the people that you're paying are not women, and the people that you're collecting money from and the people that you're asking to work for free are women, your event is not about women's empowerment. Your event is contributing to the exploitation of women, I'm sorry to say. The second thing is, if you are invited to speak at one of these events, like I have been several times over the last however many years, ask the questions. Is your AV team working for free? Are they donating their time and materials? Oh, are the caterers donating time and materials? Hmm. Is your venue donating the space? You see where I'm going with this. And if all of those people are being paid, and people aren't coming in the door because they're getting lunch. They're not coming in the door because they get that nice, uncomfortable seat at the conference center, right? They're coming in for the content. Then the people who are delivering that content should be paid as well. So I think, ladies, folks who are historically underrepresented, we have a right to ask if we're being asked to volunteer our time. We also have a right to ask who else is being asked to volunteer their time and who isn't. And finally, if you are attending one of these women's empowerment events, before you buy your ticket, and this is important, before you buy your ticket, ask, are the speakers being compensated for their time? Are the people who work at this event being compensated for their time? Because if the women's empowerment event is being produced, is being delivered on the backs of and at the expense of women, then it's not a women's empowerment event. They are taking your money as an attendee to one of these events, and they are handing it to someone who's probably not a woman, and you're not paying for the content you're receiving. You're paying for the lights, and you're paying for the microphones, and you're paying for the chairs. And that may be fine, but in my opinion, that slaps in the face this notion of women's empowerment at these conferences. And I'm happy to have this conversation with anybody who wants to have it. I understand that there are people who are, just getting their businesses off the ground who would, jump at the opportunity to speak to 150 people for free. I get that. But if you're looking at professional speakers, if you want people who are, who have original content, who are very good at their craft, who put a lot of time and energy and labor and, um, education and thought and experience and research into what they're doing. If you want a professional, be willing to pay for a professional. Just like you wouldn't ask your cousin down, your cousin or your neighbor down the street to help with the lights and sound for the event. This is really important. We see this a lot within companies. We see it a lot within organizations, not-for-profit organizations. Now, if you're a volunteer organization and you're running a volunteer event and you're not charging for it, and you've got, enough sponsors to cover the seats and that's about it, then by all means be upfront with your speakers about that. Let them know that. But if you're trying to tap into an audience with money to spend on professional development, if you're trying to tap into an audience that's obviously valuable to the vendors that are going to be there, that are or the sponsors that are going to be there, then charge enough to pay your speakers, charge enough to cover those expenses as well. Because the last thing we want to do in our attempt to empower anyone is to exploit them. Thank you for listening. I know I'm going to catch a lot of flack for this, but this is important, and I'm willing to stick my neck out a little bit, especially if it helps a woman who's just starting out, especially if it helps a woman who has never been asked, what is your fee? Especially if it helps a woman who does not have access to the kinds of networks that I have access to, if it helps a woman who does not have the same privileges I have to have these conversations. I did this one for you. Thank you all. Have a great day. If you are hiring a speaker for your event, if you are paying speakers for your event, if you understand the value of a good professional speaker, by all means, set up some time with me at workwithacw.com. That's work with Amy C. Waninger, workwithacw.com. And I would love to talk to you about your event, what you're looking for, and how I can help, transform the people in your audience from wherever they are into inclusive leaders that truly value others, that truly empower others, that truly show people every day the value that they represent to your organization. Thank you so much.